Welcome to a brief overview on how to complete a TRF. It is my hopes that sharing this with parents and students as a reminder will help students be successful in completing the TRF for homework. The very first step is to identify a subject area in which you need help. You can only select math, language arts, science, or social studies, your core subject areas. So something to think about would be, did you just receive a low test or quiz grade in a science class? Do you have any incomplete gizmos sitting in the science section of your binder? Were you able to complete the math drill today? Do you have to support a claim with textual evidence for language arts? Are there any unanswered higher level questions on your social studies homework? And can you answer each essential question on your Cornell notes? This, in addition to many other resources, can help you identify the subject in which you need. Students typically look at grade sheets prior to doing a TRF and are able to identify their lowest subject areas in order to determine the area of need. You can help them do this by looking at grades on Parent Connect also. So the next step is to actually complete the TRF for homework in preparation for tutorial day in AVID. All tutorial days and the days that TRFs are due are included on the monthly calendar that all students receive at the beginning of the month. So the first step would be to complete a heading. You want to include your subject. You want to include the standard or the outcome, and this can be found in the teachers' classrooms where they post them on the board. Sometimes it's on notes or on a student's worksheet. And you always want to make sure you include the student name, period, and the date that the TRF is due. This section is for grading purposes only. There's nothing to be completed there for students. Although this section is not to be completed by students, it's important to understand the breakdown of the grades for tutorial. So it begins with the homework grade, and that's worth 5 points. Students have to be prepared with the TRF when they enter the classroom. So that means that it has to be done for homework. This grade cannot be made up. The overall pre-work inquiry grade is worth 5 points. So even if the student doesn't complete the assignment for homework, it is in their best interest to take time in the beginning of class to complete it so that they get the points for the pre-work. Next is the resources. Students should always bring their notes and handouts, worksheets from the particular class to tutorial group. This is so that they can reference anything that they have, but also when there are other student presenters, they have resources to support other questions as well. Students also get a grade for collaborative inquiry. This is where they receive points for working together, staying focused in their group, but also using questions to prompt the student presenter to arriving at a solution to their problem. Next is the note-taking. Students will take 3-column notes on the student presenter's questions. This should really serve also as a resource to study or review. So the students should take notes that are good and detailed enough to serve as a resource for them as well. And then finally, we end with a reflection. Students receive 5 points for a reflection as well. And then ultimately, it totals 25 points. So even if students miss that homework grade, they want to make sure that they complete all these other areas so that they receive the full credit for the day's work. The next step to completing the TRF is to select a specific original question from the area that they selected. So this should be from a test or quiz that the student didn't really do well on, a homework problem where they got stuck, a math drill or science drill, language arts, social studies, again, something where they felt like they didn't completely get that concept or they could use some extra work on. It needs to be a specific problem. Oftentimes students jot down, I don't know why I'm not doing well in science, or what can I do to get a better grade and remember to turn in my work. That is not what we're looking for here. We're looking for a specific question. So for this particular example, we'll use a question from a math drill. And it's a word problem. So it's applying concept to a word problem. The third step after you select the specific question or problem that you're going to choose is to identify what resources you have that will help support your answering this problem. It should be notes that you took, other homework assignments, or drills. I often tell students, think of what paper do you have where you learned this concept? How did your teacher teach this concept? Did you do example problems? Did you write down definitions of words? Did you take notes? So for this particular problem, we're going to say that we have notes from a group work activity on to 11, and we have GCF and LCM notes and GCF and LCM homework from the week. The next step would be to identify specific vocabulary. The vocabulary is specific to the words or the jargon needed in that subject area. In this particular case, it would be GCF, greatest common factor, and LCM, least lowest common multiple. So you want to list them and also define them. Sometimes students will get to this point and say, well, I don't know the definition. This is where they should go back to their resources, or they can even look up definitions. The next step is to jot down what prior knowledge you have. This is where you write down what you know about solving the problem. You should refer to your notes. I always ask students, where did they learn how to do this? Or if you had to teach someone else what you've learned, what would you say? The best way to do it is to use sequencing words. First, I'm supposed to, then I, next. So for example, first I have to find the lowest multiple of both numbers, and then I have to list the numbers, find which number they have in common, and then circle the answer because that's the least common multiple. Then it's the critical thinking stage. This is where you actually try to solve the problem. You want to show your work and apply the steps from the prior knowledge section. It's okay to get stuck here because this is where you show your work and you go as far as you can carrying out the steps that you know you're supposed to do. So in this case, I know that I have to find the LCM of 6 and 7. I took that from the word problem. I wrote down 6 and 7 just like my teacher did when I learned it in class, but I'm not quite sure how she got those other numbers that you're supposed to list. So that's where I get stuck, and I'm just going to pause there. Then I follow up in the last box with my point of confusion. What do I do with the two numbers, 6 and 7, to get that list of multiples? So if you get stuck in the previous box, write a question that you have about what you need to do next. If you solve the problem, you can write a higher level question that helps you delve deeper. It can be about real life application of the concept, or you can explain or support your response that you got. Or you can come up with a new problem to solve on the spot during tutorial. This will show that you have mastered the content and you will have the opportunity to share your expertise with your peers. At this point, you're finished with your TRF and it's ready to be turned in. And if your student's receiving a 0 for TRF completion, this is what they have to do. So I'm hoping that this provides some support at home and a reference for parents to help their students make sure that they're completing these TRFs. It's typically 2 to 3 times per month, and students know well in advance on the calendar when they are due. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime.